Ted Face the Music is an okay film. Not the best in the trilogy, but not a terrible film. I was born when Bill and Ted 1 and 2 came out. I remember the hype train for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, the excitement and need of wanting to go and see the Bogus Journey. I even remember watching the Bill and Ted cartoon series that was voiced by Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter back in 1990 for the 13 episodes that it lasted. With the third installment, there was some hype train, but not as much as people on either side bitching about the movie for one reason or another. Some of these reasons, after watching it, are legitimate. I went into this movie just wanting to see how good the third movie of Bill and Ted was going to be. All the original actors came back. They brought back Missy, played by Amy Stock. Not that she had as any bigger part as she would have in Bill and Ted 1 or 2, but it was glad to see her come back, and the way they open this movie is a fitting scene to introduce new members of fans of Bill and Ted to the original cast and the characters of Bill and Ted, but also a great way to introduce everybody that was there for Bill and Ted 1 into Bill and Ted Face the Music. They even bring back Death into it, played by William Sadler, who is a brilliant actor and who you've probably seen in many movies, and he reprises his role perfectly. It's like he's been Death ever since Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And it's great to see Bill, played by Alex Winter, back on the big screen, giving his total amount of movies since he started in the 70s up to about 27. Bill and Ted were the same characters that I grew up loving. The idea behind the script is a very Bill and Ted, but the execution is pedestrian. It feels as if it's a Bill and Ted movie, but with no real soul. The laughs don't come thick and fast. I watched it with my missus and she barely laughed at it. She laughed slightly more than me. I did notice though that we were laughing at different points, so maybe there are jokes in there for different groups, just not enough jokes for the specific audience that Bill and Ted bring in. I liked some of the upgrades and a few bits of the storylines and scripts, but not many. The storyline could have been much better. At the beginning, we get a catch-up of what has happened to Bill and Ted, that they had their career with Death, who was in the band playing with them, and later on, one of the characters even brings up Station that they collected from heaven from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, meaning everybody in their world knows of Bill and Ted, knows of Death, and knows of weird aliens from heaven. Bear that in mind, because no one believes Bill and Ted were time travelers, even though they know it by the end of the first and second movie. Everybody, like I said, has seen Death and Station. So how could they forget, especially Ted's dad, forget that Bill and Ted actually are time travelers and their wives actually are princesses? The princesses even go along with this until nearly halfway through when they clarify that they are indeed princesses. Unfortunately, this joke falls flat. The people that have watched Bill and Ted know that they are. The people who haven't watched Bill and Ted, like the missus, just asked if they really were princesses before the big reveal. So this reveal, played for laughs, just fell flat. But this movie does find its feet quickly. It goes through the opening roundup of what's happened with Bill and Ted, catching you up quickly in the opening credits. You then meet them in present day in a brilliant and hilarious scene that introduces all the major characters. It was great to see all the original actors back again. Then from here, the beginning of the main storyline starts really quickly and throws you into the film rapidly. The film lets you know that the timeline is in disarray. The reason for this is due to Bill and Ted and them going through the now multiverse of time travel as they try and find the song that is meant to bring the world together. However, this isn't explained in the movie, leading the audience on a red herring tension, making you wonder why the timeline is in turmoil, but the reason behind it being a bit of a letdown. and quite obscure, as they never clarify it's because of everything Bill and Ted did to find the song to save the world that caused almost the destruction of the world and all time. They really liked to paint Bill and Ted, heroes of 2 movies, as the bad guys in this one. There are no other bad guys except for Holland Taylor, who plays the great leader in the future, who is Rufus's ex-wife, who says it would be better if Bill and Ted were dead because that would bring the world together. Yet again, painting Bill and Ted as the bad guys. If you're going to do a trilogy or end a movie where you've purposefully made 2 heroes be the heroes, it's a very bad idea to go Call of Duty Black Ops and turn the hero into the bad guys. No one ever really likes that. Due to the red herring tension of making the audience wonder why the timeline and all of history is going to collapse because of Bill and Ted, this makes you wonder why the timeline is in turmoil, but the reason behind it being a bit of a letdown. Basically, it's there to paint Bill and Ted as failures, but their daughters, the women, as the true saviours. The daughters. Where to start? The writers don't build up their characters, don't give you any information about them except that they are the daughters of Bill and Ted. They like music and they are exact carbon copies of Bill and Ted. The missus even said that they came across as just 2 actresses playing 2 dudes, which is what they are. They are just playing Bill and Ted and remaking Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Respect to the 2 actresses though. Bridget Laundy Payne, who plays Ted's daughter, is spot on. She gets the head tics and the arm tics down to a T. In fact, there's a scene where they are in hell and Bill's dad, Bill, and their daughter do the exact same head and arm moves. This does really solidify to the audience that they are a family. A really great bit of acting. Whereas Bill and Ted were presented as stoners who were failing and just wanted to be rock stars, very apt for the 80s and what was going on, and that the turmoil of the movie was Bill going to army school and the band being torn apart. The 2 daughters, however, have nothing except for the fact that they just happen to be there. Bill and Ted 2.0, but worse. They don't flesh out these characters, they just rewrite Bill and Ted and rewrite Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But in all, the 2 daughters are there for one reason. Women rule, women will save the world, women are the best. Because where the first 2 films made it very clear that Bill and Ted saved the world, in this one, it's their daughters who actually save the world, just because they are goofy and do what they want. The whole message in this film is, do what you want, because it will all make sense in the end. Like WTF kind of message is that. Bill and Ted's characters and the exploration of what motivates people is interesting. That is the storyline of Bill and Ted Face the Music that I wanted to see more of. But instead we get a storyline that recycles Bill and Ted 1 and adds extra storylines of the timeline collapsing whilst putting Bill and Ted through the ringer. You also get a small storyline of the wives as well, played by Erin Hayes and Jayma Mays. This gives them a bigger part than the first 2 movies, a storyline that is just there for one reason. There's nothing like the present. That's it. Not a bad storyline to add to a movie about time travel, but one that doesn't really add anything to Bill and Ted Face the Music. They also throw in a terrible looking robot, played by Anthony Carr, who played Zaz in Gotham. And in this, just doesn't play it well at all. The robot looks and feels like something from a Power Rangers feel-good episode. He is funny, but they spend so little time developing his character, or any characters, that the robot, along with Bill and Ted's daughters, just come across as flat 2D characters. Some of the areas this film really does shine, though, is when they go to hell and they interact with Death, who is played, as I said, by the same actor, William Sadler from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. They keep the characters of Death from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey perfectly, just like with Bill and Ted themselves and the character of Ted's dad. When Bill and Ted interact with each other on an alternative timeline, something that should not be possible in the world lore of Bill and Ted, hence why the timeline starts to go to pot when they start travelling to the future rather than the past. This does make sense, but Bill and Ted's lore never had multiple timelines. Hollywood did to Bill and Ted what Captain Marvel did to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what CW did to Batman. Another great and brilliant part is Kid Cudi. He has a brilliant cameo and he and the writers pull this part off perfectly. Kid Cudi really brings everything together with the dialogue in a funny, unexpected and unforced way. One cameo they definitely pissed up the wall though was Dave Grohl's. He gets 6 words and 15 seconds, if that, on screen. What a waste. Dave Grohl has a better part in Tenacious D in The Bick of Destiny when he played the devil. Now that's how you do a cameo. The funniest things in the movie, I think, is when you meet the roided out Bill and Ted of the future. That bit is brilliant and spot on, along with the bit in hell when they meet death. In all, this film is well put together with parts that do work, scenes that are pulled off perfectly, good nostalgia parts and an okay conclusion for the films of Bill and Ted. But at the same point, it's one with no real soul, no real character development where it's needed, no real threat or feeling of doom, as you know it will all work out in the end. A lot of the storylines aren't needed, and making it so the women are just the saviours and these two characters who you grew up loving, they are the bad guys and failures in reality. They're the ones you don't want to be rooting for. As I said, the two daughters are just 2D copies of Bill and Ted, but the actresses who play them, Samantha Weaving and Bridget Landry Payne, do play Bill and Ted perfectly. So respect for them for being able to pull that off, because trying to pull off a part that Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter have made iconic in the same film, with Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter playing the same parts, is a hard one to pull off. But Samantha Weaving and Bridget Landry Payne, I think they did pull off what the directors and the writers wanted them to. I think if this was released in the early 2000s when people were asking for a Bill and Ted 3, then the daughters would have been better. They would have worked as a post-grunge and goth-like characters. People who are dismayed with the world but come to love everyone in it. And by extension, their fathers and family. Through their fathers uniting everyone. That would have been a better lesson to learn for them. Just do what you want because it will all make sense in the end. A lesson that has proven time and time again to be wrong is not the best lesson to be teaching people in a movie. A better lesson to learn from a movie is learn from your family, listen to your family, and love everybody in the world. It's not really there, it's kind of there, but I think if they wanted to inject the daughters into it, then a post-grunge and post-goth daughters would have been better. Plus, getting daughters that in reality aren't aged 26 and 28 would have been better to pull it off. Maybe get someone closer to the age that they're supposed to be, like they did with the original Bill and Ted, who were closer to the actual age of the characters they were supposed to be playing. It works better and comes across more realistic. In fact, now more than ever, we need storylines that make you think about your actions and what ramifications they have in the world. If that's what this movie was going for, then it failed. Another failing in the movie, but isn't due to anything about the movie, is the music. The music is very stuck in the 70s and 80s. If you are going to create music that unites everyone today, then you're looking at rock meets EDM. If you got Jared Leto, Marshmello, Dance Gavin Dance and Dave Grohl into a room, that would work. But having music which is defo 70s and 80s inspired just doesn't seem to work. It's not up to date, it's not in the now, but it does work for a Bill and Ted movie. I would have liked to have seen a movie that focused more on family, on Bill and Ted's relationship with their daughter, not just them seemingly be a failure to their wives and daughters. I know it's not the wives and daughters that see them as the failure, but rather themselves. I would have liked if they had shown more of this, more of their family and how their family inspires them to get out of their gloom and doom and inspire them to write the track that in fact unite the world. It was still great to see Bill and Ted back on screen and their characters do remain true. There are some fantastic scenes in this movie and not many scenes or ideas that fall short. But they had to paint Bill and Ted as the failed bad guys, and their daughters, who like most characters today, don't work for it or aspire to do it or grow into their characters or are fleshed out as the saviours of the world just to fit in with today's zeitgeist. So for me, this is a 3 out of 5 movie. For others, it would probably be a 4 out of 5. It's worth a watch, but only when you get the time to watch it. There is no need to stop what you're doing and rush to go and see it though. So in all, it's an okay storyline, a good script for the storyline with great dialogue, some laughs but not many, good nods of nostalgia, storylines that don't really work, a storyline to help certain agendas, some scenes which are ace and some which aren't, characters that fall flat, mainly the 2 daughters and the robot, but they are all good actors that pulled off the direction of the characters and what the creators wanted from the actors for their characters. The music is okay but stuck in time. The ending could have been better. In all, an entertaining movie to watch, but not one that you will remember with fondness like you would Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But if you're a fan of Bill and Ted, and if you want to be slightly entertained for an afternoon or an hour and a half, then it's one worth watching. Is it one worth buying out or waiting to be on Blu-ray? Or is it one really worth the 15 or 20 pounds it costs to go down to the cinema? No. It's more worth the £5 that you'd spend to rent it as soon as it comes out. But let us know your thoughts on what you thought of Bill and Ted Face the Music. This has been Quarantine's This review of Bill and Ted Face the Music, giving it a good 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, then hit that like button. Subscribe for more reviews and series reviews. Check out our channel for original documentaries, trailer reactions, and our reality roundup playlist. Quarantine This has some great uploads coming about Lovecraft, Al Capone movies, and original documentaries and more. Check it out and press that bell icon to keep up to date with our weekly uploads. Thanks for watching Quarantine This. Take care and stay safe.